A surgeon in New York earns $400,000 a year. That's roughly 8 times the median household income in America. He owns an apartment in Manhattan. He drives a Porsche Cayenne. His kids attend private school. And every single month, he opens his banking app with the exact same feeling that a retail worker making $35,000 has a tightness in his chest. A low hum of anxiety and a quiet question he can't quite answer. Where did it all go? $400,000 and $35,000. Two numbers separated by more than a factor of 10. But the sensation behind the eyes identical. This isn't a story about poor spending habits. This is a paradox with a name, the wealth paradox, and it explains why your brain is engineered to never register enough, regardless of what your bank account says. I'm James, and today we're going to take apart the invisible machine that's running underneath your financial life, a machine you didn't know you were standing on. Here's how to picture this. You're pushing a boulder up a hill. From $0 to $100,000, that boulder barely moves. You're grinding, sweating, showing up every single month, and the thing just sits there like it's mocking you. Meanwhile, you look around and see other people gliding past, seemingly without effort. But here's the thing, their boulder isn't lighter than yours. The only difference is they've already cleared the top of the hill. Once they did, the boulder started rolling on its own. That's not a motivational metaphor. That's arithmetic. At $10,000 in savings, assuming an average annual return of around 7%, your money generates about $700 a year. Divide that by 12 months, and you get roughly $58. $58 a month. The human brain doesn't register $58 a month as progress. It registers it as noise, as nothing, as background static that doesn't change how any single day feels. The result is a strange psychological experience. You're doing the right thing, and it feels like nothing is happening. At $50,000, that number climbs to about $3,500 a year, around $291 a month. Still not life-changing, but it starts to have shape. You can almost feel it. Almost? The problem is getting from $10,000 to $50,000 takes most people somewhere between 2 and 4 years. 2 to 4 years spent living inside a zone where the math is working, but the feeling isn't. That's the dead zone. Not dead because nothing is happening, dead because your brain can't perceive what's happening. At $100,000, the return hits approximately $7,000 a year, $583 a month. And this is where something fundamentally shifts. $583 a month is close to what most people actively set aside through sheer effort each month. In other words, after $100,000, there are 2 of you saving you and your money. Before that threshold, you're carrying the full weight alone. But here's the cruel part of the design. The reward only arrives after you've endured a long enough stretch with almost no reward at all. The system is backloaded. The payoff is real, but it's invisible for years before it shows up. While you're pushing toward that first $100,000, there's a countercurrent. A quiet, persistent flow pulling money out of your system that never shows up on any savings chart or budgeting app. Rent doesn't hold still. Health insurance goes up every year. Groceries, gas, utilities, they all creep upward over time. On average, the baseline cost of simply existing rises about 3 to 5% per year. Meanwhile, median wage growth tends to hover around 2 to 3%. That gap, that 1 to 2% annual difference, sounds small on paper. But in practice, it functions like a hole in the bottom of a bucket. Every month you pour water into the bucket. That's your savings. But the hole at the bottom gets a little wider each year. That's the rising cost of being alive. The result is that the amount of water actually retained in the bucket shrinks over time unless you pour faster than it drains. And pouring faster means increasing income, which for most salaried workers sits outside their direct control. So the system creates a situation where your ability to accumulate is slowly degrading in the background, even as you maintain the same effort. You don't feel the hole getting bigger. You just notice after a while that the bucket never seems to fill up. This is where the mechanism gets dangerous. When someone starts saving, the brain automatically draws a straight line. If I save $1,500 a month, I'll hit $100,000 in about 5.5 years. Clean math, easy to understand, completely disconnected from reality. Month 4, the car breaks down, $2,800 gone. Month 9, an unexpected medical bill, $1,200. Month 14, a lease end's relocation costs hit, $3,500. Month 20, a laptop dies, needs replacing for work, $110. Each event by itself is small, but stacked together, they push the timeline back 6 to 10 months. And the problem isn't the events life has friction that's not news. The problem is that the brain already committed to a linear timeline. Every disruption gets interpreted not as normal friction, but as failure, as evidence that something is broken. Imagine playing a video game where someone tells you the finish line is 100 steps ahead, but every 15 steps, a gust of wind pushes you back 5. Nobody mentioned the wind. You just keep walking and never arriving. And eventually, the only logical conclusion your brain can reach is, I must be going the wrong way. You're not going the wrong way. You just weren't told about the wind. This is the deepest layer of the accumulation trap. The moment you deposit money into a bank account, you've legally made a loan to the bank. You're not storing money. You've become an unsecured creditor, earning near zero interest to an institution that uses your loan to generate returns 10 to 20 times what it pays you back. Your money isn't sitting idle waiting for you. It's working, just not for you. At the same time, every time you swipe a card, debit or credit, you're not just paying for a product. You're paying for the right to participate in the digital economy. Banks own the payment infrastructure. Every transaction, whether it's $5 or $5,000, carries a friction cost that flows toward the system, not toward you. You don't see it on your receipt, but it's embedded in the price of everything you buy. The result is this: you're trying to accumulate inside a system where every flow of money has friction, and that friction always moves in one direction, away from you. Take 2 people. Call them Person A and Person B. Both are 27. Both earn $55,000 a year after taxes. Both live in mid-sized cities, both are single, and both start with exactly 0 in savings. On the same month in the same year, they each decide to set aside $1,200 a month. For the first 18 months, Person A is consistent, doesn't miss a single deposit. Then, month 19 hits car trouble, $2,400 gone. Month 26, a move to a new apartment, $3,000 in deposits and moving costs. Month 31, an out-of-pocket medical expense, $1,800. After 36 months, 3 full years, Person A has roughly $35,000. Not the $43,200 that clean math promised. Not even close. Person A looks at that number and does what most people do, measures it against the straight line. 3 years of effort and the balance doesn't even cover half the goal. At this rate, reaching $100,000 would take close to 9 years. The internal narrative begins to shift. Maybe this approach doesn't work for someone at my income level. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the spending starts to creep. A dinner here, a purchase there, Small rewards for trying so hard for so long with nothing to show for it. By year 5, person A is hovering between $40,000 and $45,000, not because of reckless spending, but because the gap between expectation and reality quietly killed the momentum. Now person B, same salary, same starting point, same plan. And this is important, the same setbacks. The car, the move, the medical bill. Dollar for dollar identical friction. After 3 years, person B also has about $35,000. On the surface, there is no difference between these two people at the 3-year mark. None. Same number. Same exhaustion. Same feeling of running on a treadmill that goes nowhere. But person B doesn't stop. Not because person B has more discipline. Not because person B feels motivated. But because person B understands one thing. Person A doesn't. The $0 to $100,000 stretch doesn't move in a straight line. It moves along an exponential curve, and the first half of that curve is nearly flat. Year 4. Person B crosses $55,000. The money now generates roughly $320 a month on its own. Not much, but enough to see movement that isn't coming from a paycheck. Year 5. $72,000. The monthly return is approaching $420. The boulder is still heavy, but it's shifting. Midway through year 6, person B passes $100,000. From that point forward, the math changes structurally. The money is now producing $580 to $600 a month, nearly half of what person B was contributing through effort alone. There are 2 forces pushing the boulder now, and the hill is starting to slope downward. Meanwhile, person A, same income, same ability. Same starting conditions, is sitting at $45,000 and has quietly stopped believing the $100,000 mark is realistic. Not willpower, not financial literacy, not some secret strategy or better investment vehicle. The only difference is this person A measured the journey with a linear ruler. Person B understood the shape of the curve. When you measure with a straight line, every month that falls short is a failure. Every unexpected expense is a setback. Every year that passes without hitting the target is proof that the method is broken. When you understand the curve, 3 years of slow progress isn't failure, it's the flat part before the bend. It doesn't feel good, but it makes sense. And that distinction between this feels pointless and this feels pointless and something must be wrong is where most people's financial trajectory is decided. Flip the math for a moment. Someone with $200,000 invested at 7% annual return earns roughly $14,000 a year passively, about $1,166 a month without lifting a finger. That $1,660 is almost identical to the $1,200 that person A and person B had to grind for every single month. In other words, past $200,000, money works as hard as you do. Past $300,000, it works harder. But at $20,000 or $30,000 money barely moves, and you carry the entire load yourself. That's why the early phase is so exhausting. Not because of any personal failing, but because you're doing the heaviest lifting of the entire journey with no help, not even from your own money. And here's the part that makes this a trap. Rather than just a challenge, the system never tells you this. No one draws the curve. No one says the first 3 to 5 years will look like failure, and that's structurally normal. Instead, what gets handed down is linear advice. Save 20% of your income, cut the daily coffee stick to a budget. All technically accurate. All fundamentally wrong about what to expect. Here's what most people believe when they stall out somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000 in savings, I'm not disciplined enough. Or I spend too much. Or the most common one, I just don't make enough money. All of those explanations point inward. They frame the problem as a personal deficiency, a character flaw, a lack of willpower, a gap in self-control. But what if the problem was never about the person? What if the actual issue is that nearly everyone is handed a linear map for an exponential journey and then blamed for not arriving on time? Think about it this way. If someone gave you a map of a flat road and you ended up on a mountain trail, you wouldn't conclude that your legs are broken. You'd conclude the map was wrong. But in personal finance, the map is rarely questioned. The legs always are. The blind spot isn't laziness. It isn't overspending. It isn't even income. The blind spot is shape. The shape of how wealth actually accumulates slowly, painfully, almost invisibly at first, and then suddenly, rapidly, almost absurdly fast once a critical mass is reached. That shape is never taught. Not in school. Not in most financial advice. Not in the cultural narrative around money, which tends to frame wealth as a direct function of effort. Work harder, earn more, save more, get ahead. That framing is linear. Reality is not. And there's an uncomfortable layer underneath this. I sometimes wonder whether the system has any real incentive to teach the curve. A person who understands exponential accumulation behaves differently. They hold on longer. They borrow less. They resist impulse spending not out of guilt, but out of structural awareness. They are by definition less profitable to the financial infrastructure around them. A person who quits at year 3 who concludes this doesn't work for me and returns to lifestyle consumption funded by credit, that person re-enters the system as an ideal participant. They carry balances. They pay interest. They finance depreciating purchases. They feed the machine. The accumulation trap isn't just a mathematical phenomenon. It functions as a filter. And what it filters for isn't talent or effort or intelligence. It filters for one thing, only whether or not you know the shape of the road before you start walking. The first $100,000 is not a test of financial discipline. It's a test of endurance inside a dead zone where every signal says you're failing, but the math says you're exactly where the curve begins. Most people don't quit because they can't do it. They quit because they were never shown the shape of what they're doing. No advice, just observation. But here's what's interesting. Even for those who do push past 100,000, even for those who understand the curve and survive the dead zone, there's another mechanism waiting on the other side. One that explains why someone earning $150,000 a year can feel just as broke as they did at $40,000. The income changes. The feeling doesn't. That mechanism has a name, and it reframes everything about what enough actually means. We'll look at it in the next video.